we're supposed to start at 1:55. It's 1:54. I'll just talk slowly initially in case somebody else comes. Sure. It doesn't. Well, okay. So I'm Sean Mine, and this is welcome to Smart Grid for Sustainable Energy. It's the second time this course has been taught. I introduced it last year in the fall. And it was great fun. I mean, I suffered because there was no course in the country that I really liked, and so I ended up. I mean, there were a couple of lectures where I stayed up to 2 in the morning trying to figure something out, and my lectures weren't always the best because of that. I have no sleep. Luckily, I've made such a big investment that it'll be much easier this year. There's a website that's under construction. If you go there now, there's a link on this page. If you go down there now, it's pretty awful because my website, when I was teaching this course, my website was hacked right before the second midterm. These ventilation's horrible, which means I should speak loudly. Tell me if you can't hear me, and if you really are stuck, at least you can see it online later. We'll send out links to the video. So today I'm going to basically go through an overview of the course and some motivation. And don't worry, I was early. You're right on time. This is mainly from one of the main references. So in the website, in the course description, there was just one book required. This book, Power Generation, Operation and Control. It really is a useful reference. It's not perfect, and I'll fix it where it's not perfect. So I'm going to expand on a lot of the early stuff. These other two books, one by David McKee, he was actually, it's amazing. David McKee is somebody from signal processing in Cambridge University. Knew nothing about power at all. But he became obsessed with the topic and wrote a book and then went into politics. He left Cambridge basically, and now he works with the UK, in government now. He was an energy minister. I think he's still involved. I'm not sure exactly how. But he has a book basically on the broader issues of energy sustainability, not just electricity. So this course is about the grid, and this is more general. I'm going to cover that book today. I'm basically going to just cover the main ideas from the book. And that'll be it, really. But it's a useful reference to know about, and it's free. So you can get this online, the PDF version. There's a book by Gilberts and Masters, which is used by every similar course in the country, and I don't know why. It's the most boring book. I'm sorry, but it goes through incredible details. It's mainly about hardware, so you'll get. Spend a month on silicon technologies and all of that, which, I mean, for somebody who's really interested in that area, it's fantastic, but it's a very narrow, thing. And then the dynamic and the physics of wind generation, have another month on that, pitch angles and how you compute power versus wind velocity and all of that. I mean, it's an important reference, but my God, it's boring to teach. So we're going to take that for granted, that wind energy is roughly proportional to the amount of wind. If you double the number of wind farms, you'll double the power. We're going to take simplistic models of reality, and it's good enough for the things we care about. And with solar, it changes so fast. Our book is obsolete in 6 weeks. The records for power for silicon change every few months. So I don't want to teach you something that's going to be worthless in a year. So it's much more of a conceptual course. As you'll see, I mean, there are a lot of analytical techniques, but I didn't mean conceptual, but techniques that will last forever, that you'll need forever. So in terms of today's lecture, I'm going to talk about the course structure. I already said a few things. All this motivation is from David McKee's book and the challenges, which are pretty funny. And I'll give you a course overview at the end. Okay, so the course structure. So here's something that will make you laugh if you haven't seen it before. This here and this. So this is something you'll see on the first page of this outline. And I got unlucky this year. So last year, as I was preparing this course, exactly a year ago today, I decided to go up on the Texas website, Power website, and see what power looked like. And it looked pretty sweet. You know, you've got power prices which are $80 here per megawatt hour, and they go up to maybe $500. Okay, so you know, basically the generators are receiving $500 a megawatt hour here, you know, from the utilities, and here they're only receiving 90. Well, guess what? 30 is more typical. So I thought, wow, it's pretty cool. The prices are 3 times the norm here, and you know, maybe 4 times the norm there. And then 10 minutes later, I checked again, and it looked like that. And this happens all the time. Okay, so here it turned out the prices were up at like $1,000 a megawatt hour. Again, it's normally 30. Check it out today. I was so disappointed. It was like $40 a megawatt hour, and completely blew. I wanted to cry. You know? So today, yeah, I didn't get lucky today. But check that out there. It's hard to see back there. It's negative $100. Okay, so over here it was plus 90, and now it's negative 100. So think about it. Right? So how could there be a negative price, and why would generators be willing to pay it? That's a topic to be addressed in this course. I'll come back to it. It's fun. Okay. Oh, good. There you are. So, all right. So, in terms of the course structure, so I'm going to be giving lectures, obviously. All of these slides will be online. Anytime I scribble on the blackboard, if it's not in the book, it'll be online as well. But there's going to be a lot of power lectures this semester, and in particular, Arun Majumdar is speaking on October 15th, and he's a superstar in this area. He started the ARPA-E project. So Stephen Chu is the previous energy secretary. He got his buddy Arun Majumdar to head up this new Department of Energy grant program for funding in crazy ideas in power. He headed that. Now he's at Stanford. He gave a TED Talk that's people love on the topics of this course. And he's going to be speaking October 15th, not in the course, but in New Engineering Building at a big public lecture. That is not to be missed. You've got to go to that. And you also I have to figure out how many, but I'm going to have a requirement that over the semester you have to go to at least, say, 2 talks, more analytical talks maybe in the power area. There'll be lots of them. So there'll be talks from both academia and industry. Okay. This textbook's acquired, this one that I think is a really good book for just an overview of the issues that we care about. It's not specifically about smart grid issues, but it covers the basics that you need for that. And again, these other books are optional. And today I'm going to go and review the first 100 pages of McKee's book. All right. And just like David McKee should challenge my claim. So I want a lot of discussion, and even today I'm going to say some things that might make you angry, with some of you. And, be angry, let's have a debate, all right? I'm going to really challenge your thinking on economics. The way in which the markets got transformed to create what I showed you a moment ago is crazy, And I'm going to teach you the science of the economics that led us there. And you're going to laugh as hard as me, And so last year I know that some students were really annoyed with me the first day, or the first week, and we came to an understanding after a while, okay? And so the economic principles that we hear about every day in the news many of them are silly. So efficiency, how many people think they know the definition of efficiency? I bet some of you are thinking you want to raise your hand. Well, I'm going to prove to you have no idea what that term means. And it's used every day in the media and all that. And it's justification for the market structures we have today. And once you understand the science behind the economics that led us to where we are, you will laugh your heads off. I mean, you will just scream. And so that's one thing that's going to be, some of you won't be happy. And I want to debate. All right, so please challenge me. By the way, I hate PowerPoint lectures. This is the only course where I use slides like this, but I need these pretty pictures, and I can't keep going back and forth. So whenever I get anything analytical, I'll use a blackboard and make notes, okay? So it won't always be like this. Okay, so motivation for sustainable energy. This is a really depressing picture of one person's view of the future, where all that red is underwater. Now that's 150 years from now, with current CO2 being dumped into the atmosphere. But it is a sad picture. I mean, and it doesn't show Cuba. I guess Cuba's gone, and Key West. No, it really is. I mean, if you look at the future with current, trends in global warming and sea changes, it just makes you want to cry, And there probably isn't a lot of hope, but we could slow things down, I don't.
UF is still going to be around.
What?
UF is still going to be around.
Yeah, I know, that's what's awesome. I mean, the property values. Can you imagine? We have seaside property in UF.
In Miami.
Oh, it's awesome. No, it's awesome. Yeah, I grew up in LA. I still dream of that San Andreas Fault with all that beautiful, anyway, forget it. So big motivation is energy security. And this is one place where, there's a lot of disagreement and people get uncomfortable. But energy security is important, obviously. And oil and gas are useful for a lot of things besides energy. Now, that's something you really have to think about. I mean, everything here is made of oil, And climate change is a big deal, no matter what some people think. It's a big deal. It's happening, I'm glad there's tenure. Otherwise, it'd be hard to have these conversations. So here's a very loaded political history, okay? And I feel uncomfortable even saying all this, but I feel like it's necessary. This is a university, we should be open about these things. So Eisenhower acknowledged in the 50s that the Middle East was, first of all, a huge gateway between Eurasia and Africa. It was valuable for transportation. And he also said, at the time, it was 2/3 of the oil deposits in the world were there. So basically he was saying that we need oil, and they've got it, and this is a strategic region because of that. So Eisenhower said that even in the 50s. And then Ron Paul said, some years later, this awful statement, which I think is true to some degree, that promoting democracy is a public justification for a foreign intervention. Now, it's not the only one, but anyway. It sounds so much nicer than saying we're going to risk the lives of young people and massively tax our citizens to secure the giant oil reserves of Iraq. Now, it's an awful statement, because right after 9/11, obviously, there was a horrible feeling of having to do things. But you should have been there for the first Gulf War. After the invasion of Kuwait, the public media, like talk shows, said this. Actors said this. I remember an actor saying, "We're the most powerful country in the world, why not take it?" referring to Iraqi oil. So, this is in the back of the minds of some people. I'm not saying everyone. I'm not saying that's why George W. wanted to go into Iraq. But energy, if there was no resources at all in Iraq, it'd be much less likely we'd have a war with Iraq. I mean, that's true. And then, Obama has this wonderful, in his presidential campaign, he had mentioned that our dependence on oil is one of the greatest challenges we've ever faced. It's a threat to our national security, no doubt, and our planet and our economy. And lots of things have happened since then which have changed this, which made the risk a lot less, So it's a lot less scary than it was in 2008. But this history, you can see I feel uncomfortable, but I feel like it should be said. There's a lot of politics mixed with power. I mean, political power, energy power, they all get mixed together, And money. So fracking was one of the big changes. So that's 2008. Now, back in 2008, I used to talk about the real problems we have with so much coal energy, and there are lots of issues with coal. I'll talk about in the course. And it was the strangest thing from 2008 to suddenly 2011, everything changed, and that's because of hydraulic fracturing. So in 2008, natural gas for power was incredibly expensive. It was the cleanest power we had except for wind and hydro, and incredibly controllable. So coal plants are horrible in the fact that you can't ramp them up and down. And natural gas, they're the Ferraris, of power generation. We'll get into the course, we'll get into this in a lot of detail. Nuclear power, you turn it on, it runs flat. It's not very controllable. Natural gas, you can move it up and down, and we need that. So back in 2008, I used to give talks saying, damn it, we need resources. Natural gas is too expensive, and we need new resources. And then, a few years later, we get hydraulic fracturing, and it's amazing how things have changed. Natural gas is so cheap that all the coal generating plants are going out of business, and it's good news. Having a new resource is incredibly good news. I got to testify to Congress on this a few years ago, and about how the new economy would change because of this. And I said, let's not put all of our energy in one natural gas basket, because things like this have happened before. We thought our problems are solved forever, and then something happens that makes us realize they're not. So in this case, all it would take is one aquifer, major aquifer, be destroyed because of the explosions and all that. It could turn people against hydraulic fracturing to the point where it suddenly becomes very expensive. And also, how long are these reserves lasting? We're planning to export our resources to China and Eastern Europe. Do you all know that? There are big plans to export these raw materials all over the world. If we do that, how long will they last? Maybe 50 years, 100, I don't know. But it's crazy to think it's all over. And luckily, there's been some sort of stability. At first, when this was so hot, people were just pushing to get rid of all other resources, any investment in renewables, and it's stabilized now. So I'm really happy about that. So fracking is awesome, but it's got just like nuclear is awesome, unless it leaks. And also you have to figure out how to get rid of the waste. What do you do with nuclear waste? This could be incredible if we could make it secure and manage our resources right. But I'm scared to death we're going to just burn it up. Yeah. But again, big thing in McKee is that all the plastic that we use everywhere, it all comes from oil, and we need to keep that as a resource. So we shouldn't be burning it all up. It's incredibly valuable for other purposes. And again, I mentioned the controllability. I guess I'll jump ahead. I forgot I had a plot here to illustrate this. So this happens all the time. You've got this is Europe, so it's 50 hertz. That's the frequency. Here we have 60 hertz as the frequency of power. In Europe, it's 50 hertz. A generator goes out or something, and there's a big excursion in frequency. Now that's 50 and that's 48. That's a huge excursion. That is massive. That's an asteroid hitting Florida. 2 degrees. We won't see anything like that normally. And you see this there's a huge fast transient and then a slower recovery period. This is a couple of minutes to recover. The recovery from here to here is very much analogous to the recovery of a big gust of wind hitting an airplane, or if something hit an airplane. What if the tip of an airplane wing was blasted off because of a meteor? That plane would do this. It would go whack and come back. And why? Because it's got flaps and ailerons that move like this. And those flaps, those ailerons, are the natural gas generators. They ramp up, ramp down. They can reject these short-term disturbances like that. Just beautifully. Coal generators can't, and nuclear reactors can't. Hydro can pretty well as well. But so we've got the incredible resource that we need forever. I don't know when we'll get rid of natural gas generators because it's so beautiful, dependable as a control system. So there'll be a lot of control in the course. Okay, so they stabilize the grid. Natural gas generators, the best ones stabilize the grid. Now this is some other thing, climate change. So basically this is a wonderful. Oh damn! I mean, it is that bad. Oh, well, it's okay. So this is CO2 levels from 1,000 to 2,000 in the world. And you see that this area, it's missing some stuff. There's a box there, but all this is a small piece of this plot stretched out and zoomed in. And the year 1769 is highlighted as this cusp here. And some of you might know that if you're a mechanical engineer, you might know that year, 1769. I don't know. So it's, so he gets really angry. That's why he went to politics, his part, is he was driving him crazy hearing people say there's no climate change or we're not doing it and all of this. But if you look at CO2 levels, they're flat, completely flat. And in the book, he says that some skeptics have asserted that recent increase in CO2 concentration is a natural phenomenon. And he writes, this skeptic mean a person who has not even glanced at data. Because 1769, do you know? Yeah. It's and 1769 in particular is the year that James Watt invented the steam engine. So we suddenly were burning up anything we could find to spin motors, high-spin generators. So it's so clear that we've had this coincident rise in CO2 with climate change, and I mean. Even if it's not true, so what? I always say this about evolution. I couldn't care less if it's true or not. It's a beautiful predictive model, and we can use it for all sorts of things, even if it's not true. Is F equals ma? Einstein proved it wrong. Do we throw away all of our physics books? It's a model. It works, fits reality well enough. So here's a model of reality here that we can use to think about the future. That's as good as that. Now, the thing is, as amazing as this. In the world, up until 1769, there was a balance of CO2. The oceans produced 30 gigatons of CO2 per year, and the biosphere 440. Those oceans are still there. And all of that was absorbed by the planet. So there's a perfect supply-demand balance of CO2. This really amazed me. Now, all we've added is 26 gigatons. Isn't that something? So 770 has been in supply-demand balance up until the Industrial Revolution. And we just came along and added a tiny, tiny bit. So like less than 10%, or no, less than 5%, of what was happening. But it's a dynamical system, It was an input-out, it was a system that was in equilibrium. And obviously it's not in equilibrium anymore. That looks, so that tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of extra can't be absorbed, by the planet. So anyway, so there's no longer the supply-demand balance. We'll figure it out, but we just have to, take it seriously and do it, So yeah, but that's the thing, is that all these debates are ignoring the fact that we've got this incredibly complex dynamical system. We don't know the impacts at all, And in 2014, the last, IPCC, I even forgot what that means, but just predicted what we all hear all the time, is that there'll be lots of volatility, uncertainty in climate because of this. And and that's the thing, is it's uncertain. Some places might get cold, some places hot, some places more volatile, and we don't know. Nobody pretends to understand this dynamical system perfectly. All right. Now here's where we can all feel really guilty. Now people love to blame the third world, but the U.S. is just absolutely evil. So what this is the width is the population, proportional population, and the height is the amount of CO2 per person, and we're the worst. So it's not some filthy tiny island somewhere. It's us. It's the U.S. And in fact, China is the thing is that China has a huge population of a lot of people who aren't consuming a lot, so that's why it's so low. But just it's amazing to see Germany, UK, how much per population they burn up CO2. Germany, who really tries to be clean, actually abuses, puts more CO2 than anybody, and then it goes down. So basically, the more money you have, the more CO2 you create. That's really what it is. Richer country, you know. And in China, of course, there's a lot of rich people. But yeah, if you just took the rich people in China, it would shoot through the roof. I mean, you know, if this was done through income, you get a different plot. All right, so what are the challenges? So I'm going to go through and again follow McKee and talk about some of the social challenges, things like that, and then morph into some of the engineering challenges. All right, so one thing that's really fun is how much things have changed. So David McKee tries to stack up the amount of power we need and the amount of power we could ever possibly have, and he's looking at the UK. So you think the UK is a sad place because they have no sun, you know, and so they don't have a lot of solar. It's true, and so that's why it's quite low. It's not as windy as you'd like as well. So they don't have as much wind as, say, the northwestern United States, where there's tons of wind generation. So it's stacked up here, but in spite of it being so depressingly cloudy in the UK, that is how much solar he says you could get. You know, in the UK, which is pretty amazing. But he says that's all the possible power you can get, and that's how much we need. Forget it. This is not just electricity. That's right. This is all energy. And look at that awful thing here: jet flights. Just flying in jets is this huge chunk of the energy consumed in the UK. I'm sure it's worse here. And he says here that this is throwing. This is like if you covered the whole of the UK with solar panels, put wind farms anywhere you could, you know, every single house would have a solar panel on the roof. So it's just hopeless, you know, that's what he says. But on the other hand, boy, did he get it wrong in the book. So he has estimates of how efficient solar can be. And he has a physics background, and he comes with quite a low figure. And every year it goes up. So he wrote the book in 2009, and it was already pretty good, but it's amazing how the records get beaten every year. So the best solar panels have an efficiency of 46%. They take that energy and they get 40% of it out as electricity. It's like, yes! And he has an estimate of like 20%. I don't know where he got it, because, you know, it was way over 20 when he wrote I guess this is all research grade stuff that he didn't take seriously, maybe, I don't know. But so at least, you know, we are geniuses. We're amazing as a society. It's incredible what we can do. And this technology is basically taking all the different semiconductor for different wavelengths of light. So that's how you get more energy like this. It's really beautiful to see this change, you know, going up so quickly. The social inertia is the most depressing thing. I mean, nobody's going to reduce their energy usage. They just don't do it. Nobody's going to accept a wind farm in their backyard. You know, it's amazing how people get angry even when they're proven they can't hear it. And there's no energy policy in the United States at all. I mean, there's some. I mean, I know there's a Clean Power Act and all, but there isn't really an end goal. You know, there's like, coal's bad, let's get rid of it. But where are we going to end up? Are we going to frack our way out of it? No way. Coal actually has value right now. It's supplying energy. The infrastructure is there. You know, maybe we could, I don't know. We don't have a good, where will we be in 50 years and how will we get there? It's awful. So help us out, millennials, is what I like to say. We do need some public, you know, I know Jon Stewart's gone now, so we don't have him as a cheerleader, but you know, we do need some fight from the bottom. So the challenges in terms of engineering are sweet. I mean, so I know many of you will get rich from this. I hope I will. I have 3 patents in this area, and I want to make money on this as well as save the planet. You know, it's really a fun time. I mean, because even if the U.S. policy in the U.S. changes and suddenly there's like no incentive for renewables, you've got Europe isn't going to change. You've got China and India. You've got Africa. You've got all over the world all sorts of exciting opportunities for science. And I love this course for the fact that I know we can make a big difference in terms of engineering. So here's some of the challenges. This is a favorite plot I'd like to show. This is this week in the Pacific Northwest. So let me explain this carefully. So this red curve is the load in the Pacific Northwest, meaning Washington State, Oregon, Idaho, I'm not sure what else. There's a few states there. If the load goes up to like 7 gigawatts of power, in Florida it's like 30 gigawatts for a little peninsula. And I don't know what percentage of that goes to Disney World. They used to have their own utility, so it is a few gigawatts, I think. All right, so the blue is hydro generation, and you see it goes up and down with the load, but it's bigger than the load. And why is that? Well, they've got a lot of dams, and dams fill up, and they've got to release the water. And so they sell the excess power to Canada and to California and other places. But it's a beautiful, controllable resource. So it can, look at how quickly it can ramp down hydro generation. That's valuable. Again, that's like ailerons in an airplane. That'll be useful for control, as we'll see. Now, this is what they call thermal. These are traditional coal and natural gas generators, And mainly, most of the time they run flat, and they're only running for politics, And also, we might need them, so we want to keep them alive, So basically, though, you're running them even though we don't need the power at all. And it's just, we don't want them to go to business, it is true. So it's a good policy. Now, that's wind power. Check it out. So from here, the peak here is at about 4.5 gigawatts, and the lowest is about 0 on August 8th. Now, so this is just last week. That amount of power is 3 nuclear power plants. And so that ramp is like 2 or 3 power plants going offline in an hour or two. It's something else. Now, there's a wild policy in this area where if you built a wind generator, they had to buy it from you, the power. So they have to take this. Now it's very cheap to procure. Once you've spent the money and put up these wind farms, the power is coming for free. So it makes sense, on economic grounds in some sense to take it. But there's maybe a hidden cost in inserting this volatility to the grid. It would be really nice to not have to do this. Now, somebody has to suffer for this. It's hard to see how it's being done here. Because as this is going down, the hydro wasn't reacting to go up or anything. I don't know how the control. I've been trying to figure out this for ages, how they actually deal with it. We'll talk about in the course, though. I do know a lot, and we'll understand what I do know through the course. But these ramp rates are a source of real concern. By the way, this is almost completely predictable. So a day ahead, I know there'll be a wind ramp, really accurately. I might be a little off on the exact intercept, but I know the slope. So I might be off by 20 minutes, but I actually will know that it goes up like this. It's amazing how good our forecasts are. So the volatility is a huge concern. The uncertainty is a concern, but not as big maybe as the volatility. Okay, now Germany's nuts. So I say that's a lot. That's this 4 or 5 gigawatts is 3 or 4 nuclear power plants. So 4 or 5 gigawatts. There's Germany. Wind here is not 4, but 35 gigawatts that they stuck in of power. It's amazing. What's more amazing is solar. 45 gigawatts of solar. Now, Germany is almost as depressing as the UK. If you look at their average solar per year, it's something like Minnesota, or Minnesota, maybe New York State. If you've ever been to Cornell, I think it's cloudy and miserable most of the time, and yet they've put enough solar to get almost 50 gigawatts of solar. But again, these are 2 days, and this is the aggregate of the entire country. So you don't see quite as much volatility as we saw in a smaller region, the Pacific Northwest. But those ramps in solar, now that's a ramp of now 15 gigawatts of power. So that's 12 nuclear power plants coming on and coming off. Just imagine that. So they've got to deal with that control system. It's an airplane flying through a hurricane. It's wild. And there's transmission issues as well. So it's not like the power can get from one place instantly and fast. Okay, and so the complexity with distributed generation is an issue. I mean, the fact that, and I can't really say much besides about that now, but it is a dynamical system. When you kick the grid here with a big ramp like that, it causes oscillations across Germany, say. And that those complex dynamics are something that nobody understands completely, you know. There's all this stuff here with these new measurements, better communication, and all of you have heard of smart meters, you know. These were thrown in everywhere without any thought about what you do with them, you know. And something we'll talk about in the course. I don't know what good they are, you know. You know, we have better communication. We have measurements of frequency and phase angles all over the grid. It's really valuable for control. That's really useful. The smart meters to people's homes. We're going to have a debate on that. You know, I think it might have been a mistake. It's useful for utility. They can now read meters more easily. But besides that, I don't know. But there's all sorts of things we have to rethink. There's notions of reserves today that basically, in case a generator trips, other generators can come online. Well, a generator in tripping might be 400 megawatts. Now we're talking about 30 gigawatts. It's a totally different planet today with all the renewable energy. And markets, I really hope that I can convince you that today's markets are nuts and we can do better. And you are going to be force-fed this stuff. I mean, I'm going to teach you all about the science behind this, because it's really important to this subject. You cannot take this course without understanding the economics behind it. So you'll learn all about this, and it's a pretty science. I mean, you know, the economics that justify deregulation is a really beautiful science. It's just that its applicability is limited. That's all. So in terms of markets, I mean, this is what you end up with. I mean, you end up with these situations where you have negative prices here and massive prices here, 10, 20, 100 times higher than the cost of producing energy. And then a second later, you get a wildfire, and then it's gone. You know, now this happens forever. So it's not here though, but typically it's purple here and red here. It's been like that for 5 years. You know, there's no incentive to build transmission. You know, there's a lot of wind over here, and so when the wind is really strong, the prices go negative here. Well, there's transmission constraints prevent the power from getting here, but there's no incentives to change anything. So that's why I think that's one reason, one bit of evidence that the markets are nuts. That this is 5-minute markets. Every 5 minutes is an auction, over and over and over again. And this is so much worse than Enron. I mean, it's so much. Enron was nothing. If you know about Enron, the scandal where they manipulated, well, I don't know if it's really manipulation. I mean, they can shut down a plant and do maintenance whenever they want. It's a free market. But the volatility here is so much greater in prices, so much greater than ever observed in California during the energy crisis. And I'll give you examples later in the course where, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars were made in a few hours just from a little disturbance. You know? Yeah. And so you never know. They made all that money. What did they do to get it? Deserve it? I mean, you know. I mean, you know what I mean? It's this. You know, I mean, why is it that these people made enough money so they don't have to produce energy for the rest of the year, while these people had to pay to produce energy? It's what service did they provide? They didn't. I don't know. It's bizarre. Okay, so almost done. Here's a little joke. One more comment. This shouldn't be a slide here. So these are actually, I don't know why I didn't bring this up earlier. These are the ailerons in the Pacific Northwest. The ailerons are the flaps in an airplane. What I mean is that this signal is sent to generators, and the hydro generators are asked to ramp up, ramp down, ramp up, ramp down, to make sure that the frequency in the grid, everything, the voltage, everything is constant. Okay, just like you want an airplane to be, everyone inside to feel like it's not even moving, right? And what happens here sometimes is they have limits here. Whenever these limits are put into a central authority, whenever the balancing reserves exceeds these limits, then the people that are controlling the grid have told themselves they have permission to shut down some wind generators because they're introducing too much volatility. And they artificially move it low. So normally it would be at a gigawatt. They push it down and push it down and push it down. It's because they're also looking at those dams, and they're looking at the water flowing out of the dams. And they can't let the water flow out too fast. And why? Because this is the salmon breeding area. And you let that water go too fast, there's poor salmon going upstream, get thrown in the air. So this is a cartoon I found. But you see these beautiful pictures of the salmon jumping upstream in that part of the world. It's amazing. Well, the water's going much faster because these dams are dumping out water, and they've got that incredible constraint. So it's really, really a difficult issue. I mean, and there's lawsuits going on right now because there was a contract signed. Those people built these wind power plants with a promise that anything they produced would be bought. And so now they're in the courts. Every spring, every April, go to this website, and you'll see chaos because the salmon. All right. So the course overview. So I just want to give you an idea of what we're talking about. So first of all, this is a matter of energy on the one side and actuation on the other. Okay. So energy, you know what energy is. A battery has so much energy, so it can keep a flashlight going for so many hours. But there's also different, so I mentioned natural gas generators, hydro, provide actuation for stabilizing the grid. So do batteries, and so do virtual storage. So that's something that I'm very much into. There's a cute little paper here that calls it demand dispatch. So it's actually, people at Google wrote this piece for Power Systems article. But the load in Florida is 30 gigawatts. Couldn't it go up to 31 sometimes and down to 29 and up to 31? I mean, have you ever been to Space Mountain in Disney World? They could reduce the air conditioning 20% for half an hour and then increase it for 20. Nobody feel a thing. They're all screaming. You could take Disney World and use it as an aileron. Reduce its power consumption by 30%, increase it 30%, up, down, just like that plot. Now we need a science for that, We don't want to do that to the roller coaster, the power in the roller coaster. But we're building a science for that, and it's all new. It's all in the last few years. And so that's something I don't know how much we can get into, but I'll at least be able to give the ideas of the science that needs to be built. So there's something called economic dispatch. It's about energy. And how do I decide, given my forecast of power for the next day or the next hour, which generator should be on for how long, for how much? Taking into a lot of constraints. The fact that it's expensive to turn off a generator and turn it back on. It can take a lot of time. So it turns out there's something called Lagrange relaxations, some convex optimization, that is not treated in the book, and it should be. Because once you understand that, it makes everything else so much easier. So I'm really there's some mathematics I'm going to force feed you on Lagrangian relaxations. And the other reason for that is that all the theory of economics is based on that. And that's not mentioned in the book either, except for in passing. So all of what's called competitive equilibrium theory, where the term efficient is defined mathematically, it's all based on these Lagrangian relaxations. So you'll be able to understand this economic theory in a static setting, and also in a dynamic setting where you have to take into account constraints. The generators have take time to ramp up and ramp down. And so that's going to be, this stuff is going to be valuable to all sorts of areas besides power. So these are very general concepts besides power. So there's an issue of reserves. How much do you need? Now, that requires some probability theory. It's not a prerequisite for the course, but Jesus, you better know what an exponential distribution is, or a Gaussian. If you don't, you'll learn fast, okay? So I say stochastic processes, not really. You'll need a bit of probability. Because you've got to take into account uncertainty. And how many extra generators do you need sitting around like firefighters, getting ready in case of a crisis? So we'll look at that a bit. Now, the grid is too big for this course. Distribution, transmission, grid dynamics, real and reactive power. I'll get into some of it, but you'll have to take another power course to go in details. So I'll give you very sterilized dynamics of the grid. I'll give some justification based on swim dynamics. I might refer to phasors once or twice, for reactive power, but not a lot in there. I just don't think there's time. I tried to last time, and it just killed us. But we will, and that will give us more time to talk about all these ancillary services. Ancillary services are mainly like the ailerons, the flaps on the airplane. And where they're needed, how to use them, goes back to this demand dispatch business. And we're going to have some fun here because I have time. The FERC is a Federal Energy Regulatory Commission who came up with all the wild market rules that are operating today that give rise to these crazy volatile prices. And they've recognized that their rules have not worked. And in the last few years, they've done things to try to fix it. Try to incentivize ancillary services, okay? And last year, it was really exciting. You had these 2 FERC orders that came about, and things were changing. The whole economy was changing because of it. Well, just in the middle of the course, one of my favorites was struck down. It's gone. And it's something, the polar vortex would have destroyed the Northeast if it wasn't for this FERC order. And it was struck down. And there were appeals. It's going to be revisited in October. So we'll have to have some sort of contest on what you think will happen. So the policy is fascinating. I mean, really, I know you don't think policy is fascinating, but when it comes to the implications to markets and engineering, it really is cool. And so it'll be fun to think about. We're going to go through these FERC rulings. We'll all laugh at them, and then we're going to try to think about how we would do it better if we could. And people at these balancing authorities who control the grid, they want to hear from us. They're desperate for ideas. And believe it or not, we have a voice. I have a lot of friends in industry in this area who really want help fighting back for better policy from FERC. And again, demand response. How many people have heard of that? Is that something you guys know about? I don't know. I want to strike that term from this course, because demand response always means load shedding. There's an emergency, shut down loads. And we'll forget it. Okay, I mean, we need them when there's a hurricane, sure, to be able to shut down all the swimming pools, all the air conditioning in the case of a hurricane. But that's not what the course is about. The course is about running a grid, in the face of all the issues I've talked about. So demand dispatch is a term I'll talk about. There's a notion of prices to devices. Some of you have heard about real-time prices to consumers. I'll explain to you why that doesn't make any sense either. Okay, so there's control techniques which will make demand participation work to help smooth out supply-demand balance in the grid. Real-time prices is something I hope you'll all be laughing with me by the end of the course. And one example of using loads as ailerons, as buildings. The fact that buildings have thermal inertia, you can translate that to provide thermal storage can be translated to electrical storage, just like a battery. And so we'll learn about that to some degree. I'm not going to bore you with the details of building dynamics. I'll just explain to you how you can do this. Okay, and that's it, I think. Yep, that's it. So I'll stop here, and I guess we're just out of time. I'm sure there's some maybe bureaucratic questions, so I'll hang around for them. And we'll continue and get into the course next time.